There are things I've never told a soul. Things I saw, things I did. It begins with an egg and a lie. 40 years have passed since that spring at St. Isadora's. The orphanage itself is gone now, demolished in the late 90s. Nothing remains of the Victorian brickwork or the iron gates that once kept us contained. Nothing except memories that refuse to fade, no matter how I've tried to drown them. I was perhaps 10. Time blurred in those days after Father died. They said it was an accident, the car and the bridge and the water. I knew better. I'd seen the empty bottles, heard his midnight conversations with a woman who wasn't there anymore. My mother, a ghost I never knew. The other boys at St. Isadora's called me wall talker. They'd catch me whispering to corners, to shadows, to the peeling wallpaper in the dormitory. They didn't understand. How could they? I barely understood it myself. Sister Agnes worried about my overacted imagination. Brother Thomas suggested more physical activity might ground me in reality. Only ancient Father Byrne, with his rheumy eyes and trembling hands, ever looked at me with something like recognition. Some see more than others, he told me once, his liver-spotted hand heavy on my shoulder. It's not always a blessing. I should have listened more carefully. St. Isadora's perched on the edge of the moors like a dead tooth in a blackened gum. It was a place forgotten, remembered only by the wind that howled through cracks in the mortar and whispered secrets beneath doors. Nothing grew straight there, not the spindly trees that clawed at our windows, not the weeds that pushed through the courtyard stones, and certainly not the boys who shuffled through its halls. I'd been there 3 years by then, long enough to learn which floorboards creaked, which sisters hit hardest, which corners offered shadows deep enough to disappear into when the older boys came hunting. My bed was by the window in the east dormitory, a punishment or privilege depending on the season. In winter, frost formed intricate patterns on the inside of the glass, and my breath hung visible before me as I whispered my morning prayers. But in autumn, I could watch the moors transform, heather turning russet and gold before withering to black under early frosts. It's watching us back, I told Jamie once, my closest approximation to a friend. The moor, it's got eyes. He'd laughed, gap-toothed and nervous. You're cracked, you are. Perhaps I was. I'd watched the fog roll in, thick as wool, swallowing the landscape until St. Isadora's became an island in a grey sea. Sometimes shapes moved in that fog, things that weren't quite human. The building itself seemed alive in its way. It groaned and settled at night, pipes knocking like arthritic knuckles against stone. The wind found every crack, every loose slate, turning the entire structure into an instrument that played dissonant melodies when storms came. And storms always came. Sister Agnes claimed the building had been a manor house before its conversion, home to some forgotten country squire. The older boys whispered it had been an asylum where they chained the mad to the walls and left them howling. Whatever its past, St. Isadora's rejected comfort, rejected warmth. The walls wept moisture in the spring. The corridors trapped pockets of cold air, even in summer. Mother died, bringing me into the world. Father never said it was my fault, but he didn't need to. I saw it in the way he looked at me sometimes, when the whiskey had softened his edges but not his grief. He'd stroke my hair and murmur, "You've got her eyes." Then he'd turn away, shoulders shaking. By 5, I'd learned to cook simple meals, to dress myself, to stay quiet when Father collapsed in the hallway. By 7, I knew how to guide him to bed when he couldn't find it himself. By 8, he was gone too, leaving me truly alone. St. Isadora's took me in, like the sea takes in a stone. Sister Agatha, with her wire-rimmed spectacles and thin lips, processed my paperwork while I sat on a wooden bench, my small suitcase between my knees. "You'll learn discipline here," she said, not looking up, "and godliness." I learned fear instead. Fear of the older boys, who called me Ghost because I was pale and quiet. Fear of Sister Catherine's ruler across my knuckles when I spoke to the shadows in the corners. Fear of Father Dooley's sermons about sin and hellfire that seemed aimed directly at me. "That one talks to himself," the boys would whisper. They weren't entirely wrong. I did talk to myself. Or rather, to the things only I could see. Flickers at the edge of vision. Movements where nothing should move. My one reprieve came with my daily chore, collecting eggs from the chicken coop. No one else wanted this task. The coop sat in a hollow behind the kitchens, perpetually shrouded in mist that rose from the marshy ground. The path down was slippery with moss, the air heavy with rot and feathers. "Perfect for you," Sister Agatha had said when assigning duties. "You're already half in another world, might as well be useful there." I first noticed something wrong on a Tuesday morning just before Easter. The mist had crept up from the moors overnight, thick as soup, swallowing the bottom half of St. Isadora's and turning the path to the hen house into a ribbon of uncertainty. My breath plumed before me as I picked my way down the familiar slope, egg baskets swinging from my arm. The wire fence emerged from the fog like the skeleton of some ancient beast, rust-flecked and sagging. Beyond it, the hen house waited, a crooked shadow against the pearl-grain nothing. I paused at the gate. Something felt different. The usual morning sounds were absent. No scratching of hens, no soft clucking. Just silence, heavy as a wool blanket. "Hello?" I called, then immediately felt foolish. Who would answer the chickens? That's when I saw it. A figure standing at the far corner of the hen house. Tall and impossibly thin. Its limbs seemed too long for its body, like a spider's. It didn't move, didn't seem to breathe, just watched. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I forced myself forward. "Just the mist playing tricks," I whispered, fumbling with the latch. "Just the light." Inside, the hens huddled in the far corner, pressed together in a feathered mass. Not one egg lay in any of the nesting boxes. That night, I dreamt of eggs cracking open to reveal nothing but darkness. I woke suddenly, the dormitory silent around me, save for the breathing of other boys. Something scratched at my window, light at first, then insistent. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I froze beneath my thin blanket, eyes fixed on the glass. The mist pressed against it like a living thing, swirling and coiling. Within its depths, a shape formed. Elongated fingers, hollow eyes, a mouth that seemed more absence than presence. I wanted to scream, but my voice had abandoned me. I could only watch as it traced patterns on the glass, its movements both deliberate and alien. When Sister Agatha's bell rang for morning prayers, I found myself still staring at the window. The mist had retreated, the shape was gone, but on the glass remained a single, perfect smudge, the shape of a hand and too many fingers. I didn't tell anybody about the strange figure or the scratches on my window. Who would believe me? Sister Agnes already called me the boy who speaks to walls. Sister Constance crossed herself whenever I passed. The other boys whispered that I was touched in the head. The next morning, I returned to the hen house. The hens had laid again, though fewer eggs than usual. As I gathered them into my basket, I paused at the last one. It was smaller than the others, speckled brown with a perfect shape. Something about it felt special. Without thinking, I slipped it into my pocket instead of the basket. "Just one," I whispered. "They won't miss, just one." All day, the egg's weight in my pocket felt like a secret friend. During lessons, I'd touch it through the fabric, feeling its smooth curve against my fingertips. At lunch, I sat alone as always, but somehow felt less lonely. That night, after lights out, I retrieved the egg from its hiding place in my sock drawer and cradled it in my palm. "Hello," I whispered, feeling ridiculous yet unable to stop. "I'm sorry I took you, but I thought maybe we could be friends." I placed it gently beneath my pillow and fell asleep to imagined whispers, soft, comforting sounds like I'd never known. A strange noise woke me, a wet, cracking sound followed by something like slurping. I lay perfectly still, eyes squeezed shut, heart thundering in my chest. Crack, slurp, crack. Cold air brushed my face. Something was in the room with me. Something was standing over my bed. I forced my eyes open. A tall figure loomed above me, its proportions all wrong. Arms too long, fingers like twigs, head tilted at an impossible angle. In the darkness, I couldn't make out its face clearly, just hollow spaces where eyes should be. Between its spindly fingers, my egg was breaking apart, shell crumbling as something dark and glistening was drawn from inside. The creature brought it to the void of its mouth. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, could only watch as it consumed my stolen treasure. Then, it turned those empty eyes towards me, leaned close, so close I could smell something like wet earth and old flowers, and vanished. In the corner of my room lay the broken shell, empty of everything but darkness. I began stealing eggs deliberately after that night. One at first, then two, then three. I'd slipped them into my pockets during morning collection, hiding them throughout the day. Sister Constance noticed the dwindling count and blamed foxes. I let her believe it. "Strange," she muttered one morning, inspecting the henhouse. "No signs of breaking in." Each night, I'd place the eggs beneath my pillow, whispering to them as if they could hear me. And each night, the creature would come. I'd pretend to sleep at first, then grew bold enough to watch through half-closed eyes as it consumed its offerings. With each egg, it changed, grew more substantial. The shadow gained definition. A vague face emerged from the darkness, hollow cheeks, eyes like deep wells. Arms long as oars that moved with liquid stillness, fingers that unfurled like ferns in spring. It never spoke, but I felt its hunger, its gratitude. "Did you hear that noise last night?" Thomas Adler asked at one breakfast, dark circles under his eyes. "What noise?" another boy questioned. "Like something scratching, and I had this dream. Something was standing over my bed." I stirred my porridge, said nothing. More boys began to whisper, strange nightmares. William Kent swore he saw a tall woman in the corridor, but when he followed her, she disappeared at a wall. "It's this place," they whispered, "built on old ground, cursed ground." Sister Agnes found 3 eggs in my drawer during room inspection. Her face turned the colour of spoiled milk. "Stealing," she hissed, "from the very mouths that feed you." 5 strokes of the cane, 1 for each egg she'd found, plus 2 for lying when I claimed I didn't know how they got there. I took the punishment without a sound. My secret was worth more than her understanding. That night, I placed 4 eggs beneath my pillow, the most I'd ever taken. "I brought you more," I whispered to the darkness. "They hurt me today, but I don't care. You're the only one who visits me." On the next night, a storm tore through the malls, rain hammering against the orphanage windows like desperate fists. Lightning split the sky, illuminating our dormitory in brief, ghostly flashes. The other boys whimpered in their beds. I lay awake, listening to the thunder crack and roll across the heavens. I hadn't been able to collect eggs that day. The downpour had started before dawn, turning the path to a henhouse into a river of mud. Sister Constance had forbidden anyone from venturing outside. My pillow felt empty without its secret treasure. I wondered if the creature would come anyway. A particularly violent thunderclap shook the building. The windows rattled in their frames. And then, silence. Not the absence of sound, but a pocket of stillness that seemed to push against my ears. The rain continued to fall, but distant now. I felt it before I saw it. A presence, heavy and cold, settling beside my bed. Not looming above as usual, but curled on the floor. Its long limbs folded impossibly upon themselves. Lightning flashed. The creature was there, more solid than I'd ever seen it. Its form rippled like smoke caught in amber. It seemed protective. Not predatory as before, but watchful, guarding. "Are you afraid of the storm too?" I whispered. It didn't answer, not with words. Instead, a sound emerged from somewhere within its shadowed form. A humming, low and resonant. Not quite music, but something older. Something that existed before melodies were invented. The sound vibrated through the floorboards, up through my mattress, and settled deep in my chest. I knew that sound. Somewhere in the darkest corner of my memory, I'd heard it before St. Isadora's, before everything went wrong. The humming continued, curling through me like smoke, wrapping around my bones. My eyelids grew heavy. For the first time since arriving at the orphanage, I slept without fear. Morning came with screams. Sister Agnes had found something in the garden beneath my window. A circle of cracked eggshells, dozens of them, arranged in a perfect spiral. At the center, a crude figure fashioned from twigs and feathers. "Witchcraft," she whispered, crossing herself. "The devil's work." I couldn't stop thinking about the humming, about the way it had settled into my bones like an old memory. It haunted me for days afterward, even as the whispers of witchcraft spread through St. Isadora's like a fever. As Easter approached, I decided I needed one more egg. Not just any egg, the perfect one. I knew exactly which hen would provide it to, the speckled Dorking with the proud strut. Her eggs were always larger, rounder, more perfect than the others. I slipped away during evening prayers, my heart hammering against my ribs. The mist hung thick around the henhouse as I approached, swirling around my ankles. Inside, the hens barely stirred as I reached beneath the Dorking. There it was, warm, smooth, perfect. Instead of taking it back to my bed, I dug a small hole in the earth behind the henhouse. A proper offering deserved a proper altar. "For you," I whispered, placing the egg gently in its earthen cradle. "For us." I never heard Sister Agatha approach, her hand clamped down on my shoulder like a trap. "Caught you," she hissed, her fingers digging into my flesh. "Devil's child." The punishment was swift and terrible. Sister Agatha's cane fell across my back and legs until I couldn't stand. Then I was dragged to the cellar, thrown down onto the cold dirt floor, the iron hatch slamming shut above me. "Reflect on your sins," she called down. "Pray for your wretched soul." I curled into myself on the damp earth, pain radiating through my body. Hours passed. The tiny barred window showed only darkness. Then, lightning. A storm had come again. Thunder shook the foundations of the orphanage. The cellar walls seemed to breathe with each flash. I huddled against the wall, my bruised body trembling with each thunderclap. The darkness seemed to gather, thickening in the corner farthest from the window. A familiar presence. The creature was here, in the cellar, with me. "You've come," I whispered, my voice breaking. The shadows twisted, elongating into that familiar silhouette, impossibly tall, limbs like branches, edges uncertain. But something was different. With each flash of lightning through the tiny window, the creature seemed more substantial, more defined. The air grew heavy, charged with something beyond electricity. The creature moved toward me, but not with its usual liquid grace. It seemed to shimmer, to transform with each step. "What's happening to you?" I asked, pressing myself against the cold stone. The creature stopped. Where its face should have been, that hollow, undefined space, light began to glow. Not harsh, not frightening, but soft, warm, like sunrise through eggshell. The transformation washed over it in a wave. The darkness peeled away like smoke, revealing a woman, young, beautiful, her face rimmed in gentle light. Tears glistened on her cheeks. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I knew her face, though I'd never seen it before. "Mother?" She'd knelt before me, and her hands, real hands, not shadow, reached out to cradle my face. Her touch was feather-light, warm against my tear-stained cheeks. "You were never unloved," she whispered, her voice like water over stones. I leaned into her touch, a sob breaking from my chest. "Why did you leave me?" "Rebirth requires sacrifice," she said, stroking my hair. "Life, though cruel, must be lived with grace and goodness, just as your goodliness fed my spirit the food of life. So you gave with selfless courage to that of which you cared." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the cellar. In that moment, I saw her clearly, translucent at the edges, but her eyes were deep and real and full of love. "Don't feed the shadows, my son," she murmured, pressing her forehead to mine. "Feed the light." I fell asleep in the warm embrace of the mother I never knew in life, cradled in love and compassion. I woke to the sound of the cellar hatch creaking open. Sunlight stabbed through the darkness, making me wince. Sister Agatha stood silhouetted against the morning sky, her face a mask of disapproval. "Out," she ordered. "Time for morning prayers." I stood slowly, my body aching from the beating and the cold stone floor. The cellar was empty. No trace of my mother remained, no footprints in the dirt, no lingering warmth. Had I dreamed it all? But I knew. The hollow space inside me that had ached for so long felt different. Not filled exactly, but acknowledged, seen. "Did you repent?" Sister Agatha asked as I climbed the steps. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time, the tight lines around her mouth, the weariness in her eyes. She'd known loss too, I realized. We all had, in this place. Yes, sister, I said softly. I understand now. Days passed, the whispers of witchcraft faded. I stopped visiting the henhouse, except for my assigned duties. No more eggs vanished in the night. No shadows moved across my bedroom walls. At first I waited for her return, listened for that bone-deep humming in the darkness. But as weeks turned to months, I understood that our time together had ended. She had given me what I needed, not a constant presence, but the knowledge that I had been loved, that I was worthy of love. Something shifted in me after that night in the cellar. The other boys noticed it first. A quietness that wasn't weakness, a solitude that wasn't loneliness. I stopped hiding from their taunts and started meeting their eyes. Soon they stopped bothering me altogether. When Billy Thompson, the youngest boy, arrived sobbing in the night, I sat beside his bed until he slept. When James broke his arm falling from the oak tree, I helped him with his chores until it healed. You've changed, Sister Catherine remarked one day as I helped her in the vegetable garden. I nodded, my hands deep in the soil where eggshells had once been. Don't feed the shadows, I whispered to myself. Feed the light. I've come back after 40 years. The train dropped me at the village station, and I walked the 5 miles, crossed the moors, following paths I never thought I'd tread again. The wind still howls across the heather. The sky still hangs low and grey. Some things never change. Since Isadora's exists no longer, no children's voices echo here anymore. No nuns patrol the corridors with their rulers and their righteousness. My feet carry me down the narrow path, bordered by wire fencing, now flattened by time and weather. The henhouse is barely recognizable. Just a few rotted planks and a corner post. I kneel in the spot where it once stood, where I'd buried that final perfect egg so many years ago. My fingers press into the cold earth. It feels ordinary now, just dirt and stones and tangled roots. What did I expect, I murmur to myself, some kind of magic after all these years? And then I see it, a single white feather resting in the grass, impossibly clean against the muddy ground. I pick it up, run my thumb along its edge. It's warm despite the chill in the air. I smile, a glow spreading through my chest that has nothing to do with the weak autumn sun. I miss you every day, I whisper to the moors, to the ruins, to the memory of a shadow that became light. But thank you for the life you gave with your sacrifice.